So, hello and welcome back yet again to A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. We are in book three, where we are supposedly getting near the end of this book, and we had a interesting but confusing little spanner thrown into the works. When Charles was rearrested, Sydney showed back up, and so did Miss Pross's supposedly dead brother, who really isn't, because he seems to be someone who gave evidence in Charles Darnay's first trial back in England, and now he's a spy in France and also buried a fake body. I don't know. Seemed a little bit convoluted, but that could just be sometimes books make me sort of confused, especially these older ones. But that's basically where we're at. As you can see, or maybe you can't, we have sunlight today, and it's supposed to be above freezing, which is wonderful. Unfortunately, we have more snow coming tomorrow because winter just keeps winning the fight. I mean, I know eventually spring is going to actually come out on top, but winter is putting up quite the fight this year, so yay. Anyway, that is neither here nor is it there, because now it is time to jump back in and read another chapter in A Tale of Two Cities, Book 3, and Chapter 9 is titled The Game Made. Well, Sidney Carton and the Sheep of Prisons were in the adjoining dark room, speaking so low not a sound was heard. Mr. Lorry looked at Jerry in considerable doubt and mistrust. That honest tradesman's manner of receiving the look did not inspire confidence. He changed the leg on which he rested as often as if he had 50 of those limbs and were trying them all. He examined his fingernails with a very questionable closeness of attention, and whenever Mr. Lorry's eyes caught his, he was taken with that peculiar kind of short cough, requiring the hollow of a hand in front of it, which is seldom, if ever, known to be an infirmity attendant upon perfect openness of character. "Jerry," said Mr. Lorry, "come here." Mr. Cruncher came forward sideways with one of his shoulders in advance of him. "What have you been, besides a messenger?" After some thought, accompanied with an intent look at his patron, Mr. Cruncher conceived the luminous idea of saying, "Agricultural character." "My mind misgives me much," said Mr. Lorry, angrily shaking a finger at him, "that you have used the respectable and great house of Tellson's as a blind, and that you have had an unlawful occupation of an infamous description. If you have, don't expect me to befriend you when you get back to England. If you have, don't expect me to keep your secret. Tellson's shall not be imposed upon." "I hope, sir," pleaded Mr. Cruncher, "that a gentleman like yourself, what I've had the honor of odd jobbing till I'm gray, would think twice about harming me, even if it was so. I don't say it is, but even if it was, and which it is to be took into account if it was, it wouldn't even then be all one side. There'd be two sides to it. There might be medical doctors at the present hour picking up their guineas where honest tradesmen don't pick up his fardens. No, nor yet half fardens, no, nor yet his quarter, a banking away like smoke at Tellson's, and cocking their medical eyes at that tradesman on the sly, going in and going out of their own carriages, equally like smoke, if not more. Well, that'd be imposing too on Tellson's, for you cannot sarse the goose and not the gander. And here's Mrs. Cruncher, or leastwise was in old England times, and would be tomorrow, 'cause if cause has been given, just flopping against the business to a degree that's ruinating, stark ruinating. Whereas the medical doctors' wives, they don't flop, catch them at it. Or if they flop, their flopping goes in favor of more patients, and how can you rightly have one without the other? Then, what with undertakers and parish clerkses and sextons, and what with private watchmen, a man wouldn't get much by it, even if it was so. And what little a man did get would never prosper with him, Mr. Lorry. He'd never have no good of it. He'd want all along to be out of the line if he could see his way out, being once in, even if he really was. Ugh, cried Mr. Lorry. I'm shocked at the sight of you. Now, what I would humbly offer you, sir, said Mr. Cruncher, even if it was so, which I don't say it is. Don't provocate, said Mr. Lorry. No, I will not, sir, said Mr. Cruncher, as if nothing were further from his thoughts. Which I don't say it is. What I would humbly offer to you, sir, would be this. Upon that there stool, at that there bar, sets that there young boy of mine, brought up and growed up to be a man. What will errand ye, message, general light job, till your heels is where your head is, if such should be your wishes. If it was so, which I still don't say it is, let that there boy keep his father's place, and take care of his mother. Don't blow upon that boy's father, do not do it, sir, and let that father go into the line of regular digging, and make amends for what he would have undug, if it was so, by digging him with a will, with convictions respecting the future keeping of them safe. That, Mr. Lorry, said Mr. Cruncher, wiping his head with his arm as an announcement that he had arrived at the final destination of his talk, is what I would respectfully offer to you, sir. A man don't see all this here going on dreadful around him, in the way of subjects without heads, dear me, plentiful, for enough to bring the price down to a porterage, and hardly that, without having serious thoughts about things. And these here would be mine, if it was, entreating of you fur to bear in mind what I said just now. I up and said in the good cause when I might have kept it back. That at least is true, said Mr. Lorry. Say no more. It may be that I shall yet stand your friend if you deserve it, and repent in action, not words. I want no more words. Mr. Cruncher knuckled his forehead as Sidney Carton and the spy came out of the dark room. Adieu, Mr. Bassard, said Sidney. Our arrangement thus made, you have nothing to fear from me. He sat down in a chair on the hearth over against Mr. Lorry. When they were alone, Mr. Lorry asked what he had done. Not much. If it should go ill with the prisoner, I have assured that I have access to him once. Mr. Lorry's face fell. It is all I could do, said Carton. To propose too much would be to put this man's head under the axe, and as he himself said, nothing worse could happen to him if he were denounced. It was obviously the weakness of the position. There's no help for it. But access to him, said Mr. Lorry. If it should go ill before the tribunal will not save him. I never said that it would, said Sidney. Mr. Lorry's eyes gradually sought the fire. His sympathy with his darling and the heavy disappointment of this second arrest gradually weakened them. He was an old man now, overborne with anxiety, and his tears fell. You are a good man, and a true friend, said Carton, in a different tone of voice. Forgive me if I notice that you are affected. I could not see my father weep and sit by careless, and I could not respect your sorrow more if you were my father. You are free from that, however." Though he said the last words with a slip into his usual manner, there was real feeling and respect both in his tone and his touch that Mr. Lorry, who had never seen the better side of him, was wholly unprepared for. He gave him his hand, and Carton gently pressed it. "To return to poor Darnay," said Carton. "Don't tell her of this interview or arrangement. It would not enable her to go see him. She might think it was contrived, in the case of the worst, to convey to him the means of anticipating the sentence." Mr. Lorry had not thought of that, and he looked quickly at Carton to see if it were in his mind. It seemed to be. He returned the look and evidently understood it. "She might think 1,000 things," he said, "and any of them would only add to her trouble. Don't speak of me to her. As I said to you when I first came, I had better not see her. I can put my hand out to do any little helpful work for her that my hand can find to do without that. You're going to her, I hope. She must be desolate tonight." "I'm going now. Right now." "I'm glad of that. She has such a strong attachment and reliance on you. How does she look?" "Anxious and unhappy, but beautiful." Ah, that was a grieving sound, almost like a sigh or sob. It attracted Mr. Lorry's eyes to Sidney's face, which was turned to the fire. A light, or a shade, Mr. Lorry could not have said which, passed from it as swiftly as a change will sweep over a hillside on a wild, bright day, and he lifted his foot to put back one of the little flaming logs which was tumbling forward. He wore the white riding coat and top boots, which was then in vogue, and the light of the fire touching their surfaces made him look very pale, with his long brown hair, untrimmed, hanging loose around him. His indifference to the fire was sufficiently remarkable to elicit a word of caution from Mr. Lorry. His boot was still upon the hot embers of the flaming log when it had broken under the weight of his foot. "I forgot it," he said. Mr. Lorry's eyes were again attracted to his face, taking note of the wasted air which clouded the naturally handsome features, and having the expression of prisoners' faces in his mind, he was strongly reminded of them. "And your duties here have drawn to an end, sir?" said Mr. Carton. "Yes. As I was telling you last night when Lucy came in unexpectedly, I have at length done all that I can do here. I hoped to have left them in perfect safety, and then to have left Paris. I have my leave to pass. I was ready to go." They both fell silent. "Yours is a long life to look back upon, sir," said Carton. "I am in my 78th year." "You've been useful all your life, steadily and constantly occupied, trusted, respected, looked up to." "I have been a man of business," said Mr. Lorry, "ever since I have been a man. Indeed, I may say I was a man of business as a boy." "See what a place you fill at 78. How many will miss you when you leave it empty?" "I'm a solitary old bachelor," said Mr. Lorry. "There is nobody to weep for me." "How can you say that? Wouldn't she weep for you? Wouldn't her child?" "Yes, that is true. I didn't mean quite what I said." "It's a thing to thank God for, is it not?" "Surely." "If you could say with truth, in your own solitary heart tonight, 'I have secured to myself the love and attachment, the gratitude or respect of no human. I have won myself a tender place in no regard. I have done nothing good or serviceable to be remembered. Then your 78 years would be 78 heavy curses, would they not? If you say so, Mr. Carton. I think they would. Sidney turned his eyes again to the fire, and after silence for a few moments said, I should like to ask you, does your childhood seem far off? Do the days when you sat at your mother's knee seem days of long ago? In response, Mr. Lorry said, 20 years back, yes, at this time of my life, no. For as I draw closer and closer to the end, I travel in the circle nearer and nearer to the beginning. It seems to be one of the kind smoothings and preparings of the way. My heart is touched now by many remembrances that had long fallen asleep, of my pretty young mother, and by so many associations of the days when what we call the world was not so real to me, and my faults not confirmed. I understand that feeling, said Carton with a bright flush. Are you the better for it? I hope I am. Carton terminated the conversation here by rising to help him on with his outer coat. But you, said Mr. Lorry, you are young. Yes, said Carton. I am not old, but my young way was never enough to age. Enough of me. And of me, I'm sure, said Mr. Lorry. Are you going out? I'll walk with you to her gate. You know my vagabond, restless habits. If I should prowl about the streets a long time, don't be uneasy. I'll reappear in the morning. You go to court tomorrow? I do, unhappily. I'll be there, but only as one of the crowd. My spy will find a place for me. Take my arm, sir. Mr. Lorry did, and they went downstairs and out in the streets. A few minutes brought them to Mr. Lorry's destination, and Carton left him there, but lingered at a little distance and turned back to the gate again when it was shut and touched it. He had heard of her going to the prison every day. She came out here, he said, looking around, turned this way, and must have trod these stones often. Let me follow her step. It was 10 at night when he stood before the prison of La Force, where she had stood hundreds of times. A little wood sawyer, having closed his shop, was smoking his pipe at the shop door. Good night, citizen, said Sidney, pausing and going by. Good night, citizen. How goes the Republic? Do you mean the guillotine? Not bad. 63 today. We'll mount to 100 soon. Samson and his men complain sometimes of being exhausted. Ha! He's so droll, Samson. Such a barber. Do you often go and watch? Watch him shave? Always, every day. What a barber. Have you seen him at work? Never. Go see him when he has a good batch. Figure this to yourself, citizen. He shaved the 63 today in less than 2 pipes. Less than 2 pipes, my word of honor. As the grinning little man held out the pipe he was smoking to explain how he timed the executioner, Carton was so sensible of a rising desire to strike the life out of the man that he turned away. But you are not English, said the wood sawyer, though you wear English clothing. Yes, said Carton. You speak like a Frenchman. I'm an old student here. Ah, a perfect Frenchman. Well, good night then, Englishman. Good night, citizen. But do go and see the droll dog, said the little man, and take the pipe with you. Sidney had not gone far out of sight when he stopped in the middle of the street under a glimmering lamp and wrote with his pencil on a piece of paper. Then, traversing with the decided step of one who remembered the way well, several dark and dirty streets, much dirtier than usual, for the best public thoroughfares remained uncleansed in these times of terror, Sidney stopped at a chemist's shop, which the owner was closing with his own hands. A small, dim, crooked shop, kept in a tortuous uphill thoroughfare by a small, dim, crooked man. Giving the citizen, too, good night, he confronted him at his counter and laid the paper in front of him. "Whew!" said the chemist as he read it. "Hi, hi, hi!" Sidney Carton took no heed, and the chemist said, "For you, citizen." "For me." "You will be careful to keep them separate, citizen. You know the consequences of mixing them." "Perfectly." Certain small packets were made up and given to him, and he put them one by one in the breast of his inner coat, counted out the money for them, and then deliberately left the shop. "There's nothing more to do," said Sidney, looking at the moon, "until tomorrow. I can't sleep." It was not a reckless manner, the manner which he said those words aloud under the clouds, nor was it more expressive of negligence than defiance. It was the settled manner of a tired man who had wandered and struggled and got lost, but who at length struck into his road and saw the end. Long ago, when he had been famous among his earliest competitors as a youth of great promise, he had followed his father to the grave. His mother had died years before. These solemn words, which had been read at his father's grave, came into his mind as he went down the dark streets among the heavy shadows, with the moon and clouds high above him. "I am the resurrection and the life, saith the Lord. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. Whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die." In a city dominated by the axe, alone at night, with a natural sorrow rising in him for the 63 who had that day been put to death, and for tomorrow's victims then awaiting their doom in the prisons, and still of tomorrows and tomorrows, the chain of association brought the words home, like a rusty old ship's anchor from the deep might have found. He did not seek it, but he repeated the words and went on. With a solemn interest in the lighted windows where the people were going to rest, forgetful through a few calm hours of the horrors all around them, in the towers of the churches where no prayers were said, for the popular revulsion had even traveled that length of self-destruction from years of priestly impostors, plunderers, and rogues, in the distant burial places reserved as they wrote upon the gates for eternal sleep, in the abounding jails, and in the streets along which the 60s rolled to a death that had become so common that no sorrowful story of a haunting spirit ever arose among the people out of all the workings of La Guillotine, with a solemn interest in the whole life and death of the city, settling down to its short nightly pause and fury. In that, Sidney Carton passed the Seine again for lighter streets. Few coaches were abroad, for riders and coaches were liable to be suspected, and gentility hid its head in red nightcaps and put heavy shoes on and trudged. But the theaters were all well filled, and the people poured cheerfully out as Sidney passed and went chatting home. At one of the theater doors there was a little girl with a mother, looking for a way across the street through the mud. He carried the child over, and before the timid arm was loosed from his neck, asked her for a kiss. "I am the resurrection and the light, saith the Lord. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live, and whosoever liveth in me and believeth shall never die. Now that the streets were quiet, and the night wore on, the words were echoes in his feet and in the air. Perfectly calm and steady, he sometimes repeated them to himself as he walked, but he always heard them. The night wore on, as he stood upon the bridge, listening to the water as it splashed the river walls of the island of Paris, where the picturesque confusion of the houses and the cathedral shone bright in the light of the moon. The day, when it came coldly, looking like a dead face out of the sky. Then the night, with the moon and stars, turned pale and died, and for a little while it seemed as if creation were delivered to death's dominion. But the glorious sun, rising, seemed to strike these words, the burden of the night, straight and warm into his heart in its long bright rays. And looking at the sun with reverently shaded eyes, a bridge of light appeared to span the air between him and the sun, with the river sparkling under it. The strong tide, so swift, so deep and certain, was like a congenial friend in the morning stillness. He walked by the stream, far from the houses, and in the light and warmth of the sun fell asleep upon the bank. When he awoke and was afoot again, he lingered there a little longer, watching an eddy that turned and turned, purposeless, until the stream absorbed it and carried it out to sea. It's like me, he thought. A trading boat, with a sail of the softened color of a dead leaf, then glided into view, floated by him, and died away. As its silent track in the water disappeared, the prayer that had broken up out of his heart for merciful consideration of all his poor blindness and errors ended in the words, "I am the resurrection and the life." Mr. Lorry was already out when he got back, and it was easy to surmise where the good man had gone. Sidney Carton drank nothing but a little coffee, ate some bread, and having washed and changed to refresh himself, went out to the place of the trial. The court was all astir and abuzz when the black sheep, who many fell away from in dread, pressed him into an obscure corner amongst the crowd. Mr. Lorry and Dr. Manette was there, and she was there too, sitting beside her father. When her husband was brought in, she turned a look upon him so sustaining, so encouraging, so full of admiring love and pitying tenderness, yet so courageous for his sake, that it called the healthy blood into his face, brightened his glance, and animated his heart. If there had been any eyes to notice the influence of her look on Sidney Carton, it would have been seen to be the same influence exactly. In front of that unjust tribunal, there was little or no order of procedure ensuring to any accused person any reasonable hearing. There could have been no such revolution if all laws, forms, and ceremonies had not first been so monstrously abused that the suicidal vengeance of the revolution was to scatter them to the winds. Every eye turned to the jury. The same determined patriots and good Republicans as yesterday and the day before and tomorrow and the day after. Eager and prominent among them, one man with a carving face and his fingers perpetually hovering around his lips, whose appearance gave great satisfaction to the spectators. A life-thirsting, cannibal-looking, bloody-minded juryman, the Jacques III of Saint Antoine. The whole jury, as a jury of dogs impaneled to try the deer. Every eye then turned to the 5 judges and the public prosecutor. No favorable leaning in that quarter today. A fell, uncompromising, murderous business there. Every eye then sought some other eye in the crowd and gleamed at it approvingly, and heads nodded to one another before bending forward with attention. Charles Evrémonde, called Darnay, released yesterday, reaccused and retaken yesterday. Indictment delivered him last night. Suspected and denounced enemy of the Republic, aristocrat, one of a family of tyrants, one of a race proscribed for that they had used their abolished privileges to the infamous oppression of the people. Charles Evrémonde, called Darnay, in right of such proscription, absolutely is dead in the law. To this, or a fewer even words, said the public prosecutor. The president asked, was the accused openly denounced or secretly? Openly. By who? 3. Ernst Deforge, the wine vendor of Saint Antoine. Good. Therese Defarge, his wife. Oh, very good. Alexandra Marnette, physician. At that a great uproar took place in the court, and in the midst of it Dr. Manette was seen, pale and trembling, standing where he had been seated. President, I indignantly protest to you that this is a forgery and a fraud. You know the accused to be the husband of my daughter. My daughter, and those dear to her, are far dearer to me than my own life. Who and where is the false conspirator who says that I denounce the husband of my child? Citizen Manette, be tranquil. To fail in submission to the authority of the tribunal would be to put yourself out of the law. As to what is dearer to you than your own life, nothing can be so dear to a good citizen as the Republic. Loud acclamation hailed this rebuke, and the president rang his bell and with a warmer tone resumed. If the Republic should demand of you the sacrifice of your child herself, you would have no duty but to sacrifice her. Listen to what is to follow, but in the meanwhile be silent. Frantic acclamations were again raised. Dr. Manette sat down with his eyes looking around, his lips trembling, his daughter close to him. The craving man in the jury rubbed his hands together and restored his usual hand-to-mouth position. Defarge was produced, when the court was quiet enough to admit of his being heard, and rapidly expounded the story of the imprisonment, and of his having been a mere boy in the doctor's service, and of the release, and of the state of the prisoner when delivered to him. This short examination followed, for the court was quick at its work. You did good service at the taking of the Bastille, did you, citizen? I believe I did. Here, an excited woman screeched from the crowd. You were one of the best patriots there. Why not say so? You were a cannoneer that day there, and you were among the first to enter the accursed fortress. Patriots, I speak the truth. This was the Vengeance, who, amidst the warm commendations of the audience, thus assisted. The president rang his bell, but the Vengeance, warming with encouragement, shrieked, I defy that bell, wherein she was again commended. Inform the tribunal of what you did that day within the Bastille, citizen. I knew, said Defarge, looking at his wife, who stood at the bottom of the steps on which he was raised, looking up at him. I knew that this prisoner, of whom I speak, had been confined in a cell known as 105 North Tower. I knew it from him himself. He knew himself by no other name than 105 North Tower when he made shoes under my care. As I served my gun that day, I resolve, when the place shall fall, to examine the cell. And the prison fell. I mount to the cell, with a fellow citizen who is one of the jury, directed by the jailer. I examined it very closely. In a hole in the chimney, where a stone has been worked out and replaced, I find a written paper. This is that paper. I have made it my business to examine some specimens of the writing of Dr. Manette. This is the writing of Dr. Manette. I confine this paper, in the writing of Dr. Manette, to the hands of the President. Let it be read. In a dead silence and stillness, the prisoner under trial looking lovingly at his wife only looking from him to look with grace at her father, and Dr. Manette keeping his eyes on the reader, Madame Defarge never taking her eyes from the prisoner, and Defarge never taking from his feasting wife, and all other eyes intent upon the doctor, who saw none of them. The paper was then read, and it follows ... because that is the end of the chapter. I think that's the first actual cliffhanger that Charles Dickens left. Can you imagine back when this was written? I think it was like one installment a week, or maybe it was one installment a month. People had to wait a long time to find out what the paper said. I'm guessing right now, and I could be totally wrong, but I am guessing right now that the paper is probably going to say that Charles Darnay's family is the one that put Dr. Manette in jail. I could be wrong, but I'm betting that's what it said. Anyway, what do you guys think that this paper says? We only have to wait until tomorrow to find out, but I'm curious to see what you guys think. So leave that down in the comments below. Leave all your theories, unless you've read the book and you already know, in which case, shh, no spoilers. And yeah, poor Sidney. He's feeling more and more like Eponine from Les Miserables, and that makes me sad and think that he's probably going to do something very noble and silly. But anyway, that is where we're going to leave it today. Please do hit the thumbs up on your way out, and I will see you. Well, honestly, I'll probably be recording another chapter today, but I won't see you until tomorrow, so have a good one.